Don't miss our latest tutorial on how to get those sweet electric glow effects for your power weapons.
Spiky bits.
What's up, hobby maniacs? I'm Baer, and today we have a fantastic hobby tutorial for you. I prefer some electric kind of squiggle look to all of my power weapons. I know there's some great other ways to do it out there, some fantastic airbrush fades and stuff, but maybe I'm just a realist at heart, and I like a little electricity jumping around the blades and power fists and things. And today I'm going to show you how to do that on, well, not Celestine, because she's already done, but on her two bodyguard miniatures. It's very easy. Of course, having an airbrush does help, I won't lie, but you can still achieve the same effect doing a light dry brush or perhaps a glaze. It'll just take you longer. But the key to this technique is to have some very good fine detail brushes with very good points. So you're going to want to invest in some nice detail or fine detail. Winsor Newton, I think I used the number 2. I want to say the number 2 miniature, Winsor Newton Series 7, number 2. Nope, 0. I think it was 0. I don't know. I say it in the tutorial. I have so many brushes. I don't even know. Sometimes I forget the whole recipe to things, and I have to go back to my book or to my own tutorials to see how I do things. It's crazy. So much going on, so much ground to cover every day. But anyways, I think this is a really good tutorial for you. And if you love that realistic electric power arcing effect on any sorts of weapons, you can do it on guns. You could even do it on like a power fist or something like that. I use it on that Knight Castigator that you probably see in a lot of our images on Patreon and things like that. Then this is the tutorial for you. So here she is. We've laid out all the golds already. Nothing new there. Stuff you've seen on the stream, stuff you've seen over on Next Level Painting. So we're not even going to cover that, but we are going to talk about the very first step on the sword. And that's just grabbing a nice detail brush and just getting in there and blackening out all the areas that you are going to want to transform into that really exciting electric look. The second part is to grab you a airbrush teal. Any airbrush teal will do. Right here we got a Temple Guard blue from Citadel Air. Now we have decanted these paints and put them into these 15 mil paint pots here that you can get off Amazon. I think they're like 50 of them for like 25 bucks. 15 mil. They come with this little stupid ring right here that sits on here, and then they lock right in. They're pretty easy to use. I love these things right here. And then you just take the sticker and apply it onto your bottle right there so you know what's what. So we put a little bit of that into our airbrush. Very little, because we're not going to need a whole lot right here. Now, you can achieve this same effect if you wanted with a normal brush, and just by applying it in the same manner that we're doing here, just by doing it over successive thin coats, also known as glazing. It will take you a lot longer, but it doesn't cost you the setup of an airbrush. However, that's kind of the rub, right? Because if you have an airbrush, you're going to want to use it, you're going to want to save time, and that's kind of where we're at right here. So we're going to go in here and we're going to do a couple of unique patterns. I'm going to try to stay away from, well, I guess I don't necessarily need to try to stay away from the model itself here, because what I can do is just grab a little card and just kind of separate it, right? By putting this in here and creating that area of separation. It's just a little index card. Actually, it's a little bit tougher than I thought it was going to be, so that probably won't work so well. So we'll just go back to plan don't suck, or try to not suck. And we're just going to kind of get in here and aim at the middle of the sword as not to get any overspray on the model itself. Now, you could use some silly putty if you wanted, if you are so inclined. I'm just going to try to raw dog it and hope I don't suck, aka plan don't suck. So here we go. Plan don't suck. Alright, so we're aiming right there at the middle, and that's going to create a little bit of separation, a nice thick coat there, but it's gonna get sucked in. This is a transparent, opaque paint, or not opaque, but it is transparent. Now we're going to go up here, and we're going to bring it back a little, kind of making a little bit of a swirl as best we can. And we want some areas that are darker, that are more lighter. I say darker, but I mean the paint is applied more. And we want somewhere it's just an overspray because it's going to naturally look good over a couple of coats of thin glazes at the end after we add in the lightning effect. So there it is right there. It looks like a couple of pulses of energy right off the bat. We're going to flip it over and do kind of something similar, but not necessarily in the same spots. We're just going to go towards the top right here because the top's a good spot, and kind of towards the middle, again, aiming at the middle of the model. Or of the sword, kind of something like that. And checking our sides, we're going to bring it together. It looks like it's brought together pretty good right there. And we'll just do a little bit of overspray running up along this leading edge. Kind of something like that, with a little bit of overspray, but a little bit of paint right there as well. So it doesn't quite look blank, but doesn't look bad either. And I think what we're going to link this spot right here up around to the... That's a gotcha right there. So we're gonna use our finger eraser and get in there and fix that. There we go. It's good to have airbrush paints, but also don't let the tip get clogged. You can see right there, it's starting to dry. That's the notorious thing about these GW paints. They love to dry on your needle. So let's try it again. Bringing it over on that leading edge right there, trying to get a little bit of definition. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, and I'm okay with that. So that is about as far as we're gonna get with our actual airbrush work on this model. Like I said, you can build it up over successive coats using glazes, but that right there took literally less than a couple of minutes, and it's gonna set us up for this brush work that we're gonna do next. So now's the hard part, or the even harder part if you did all that by hand with a paintbrush. We're going to grab some of our Ulthuan Grey, not that Ulthuan Grey, this Ulthuan Grey, the air paint, because it is already watered down some. So I'm loving that. I've already poured out a little bit on the table. We're going to grab our super liner brush right here. This is a Lowell Cornell 7350 6-aught brush. I don't even think they make these anymore. I had a bundle of them from back in the day when I used to run Battle Wagon Bits, and I still have a few more left, so they work pretty good. I think they're an 18-aught now, I want to say. I'm not exactly sure. So we're just going to get in here, and we're going to start drawing some lines, but dragging the tip of the brush, not really actually painting, just kind of dragging and squiggling things a little bit in like a weird kind of lightning kind of arc thing. So that was a little strong. We're gonna use our finger eraser there, reset our brush real quick, grab some more paint, which appears to be kind of drying out. That might explain why that was a little thick. All right, grab a little bit of watered. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this will work. So now we're gonna get in there, same deal, but we're just dragging that very edge of the paintbrush. Let's zoom in a little bit on that, because I know this is something you're not gonna want to miss. Let's see how much detail we can get in there. There we go. That's pretty good. Reset the brush. Got to be quick with this because paint dries quick, especially when it's watered down on the very... we're using a Taklon bristle, so it's not quite a sable, so it dries a lot quicker. So there you can see our first, and we're just going to keep following that. Just grabbing and dragging. It's a very, very concentrated effort here. And we're just going to grab that and drag that right off right there, because now we're going to come in and hit it from a different angle. Reset the brush. And we're going to pull that off towards the other side. And I need to get some more paint on this brush real quick. Wow, there actually is not... Well, maybe. Alright, let's see how this works. So we're going to get right here in this middle, this cut, and start pulling it over this way. And that was maybe a little too thick, but it's pretty much dry at this point, so we're stuck with it. Now we're gonna go back over it real quick. Just squiggles, and if you go off, that's okay. It's lightning. Lightning does lightning things. It's not that big of a deal. So now we've got that pattern, and we're gonna just kind of keep duplicating things and retracing, but hitting certain areas like right here with a little bit more paint to make definition, and then going back and dragging it more and more down towards the hilt right here. So after about 5 minutes of going in and pulling our lines slowly and then going back over them slowly with a little bit more paint, we kind of have this effect right here. Remember, you just want to drag the bristle, the very edge of the bristle along. You don't want to put you want to put very little pressure on it. Now we're actually not using a white paint here. We're using Ulthuan Grey, so it goes great with this kind of turquoisey kind of look. Now right here, I need to add a little bit more paint to get the effect I'm looking for on this back end. So I'm just gonna give you a little example of how that works. And now because my bristle is so small, I actually highlighted inside of that little piece of lightning right there. So it creates a bunch of definition as well as we go. Now we're gonna flip it over and do the same thing, but we're gonna grab some of these areas where it ventures towards the edge of the blade. We're gonna wrap those around to our back right there. So there's the front we just left you with, and here's the work that we did on the back, linking it all together from the leading edges, going from the front to the back there. We even accented the little power sword crystal kind of thing right there, and did a little bit of extra coats up at the top. Now comes the arduous and a little bit time consuming process of glazing the miniature to create even more depth on here. So we mixed up a little bit of glaze. We're using Guilliman blue right here, the fantastic glaze from Games Workshop, and we mixed in a little bit of our patented, not really, 75% water, 25% pledge with future or future 4 wax mix right there into a nice little wash over here on our palette. Our, I guess you could call it our hobo paint palette right here. And we're just going to grab from some of this and dab it on here as soon as we get things back in focus. And dab it on here in random splotches, again, to create a little bit more depth. Now, it's a little too much liquid right there. So we're going to get some of that off. And just get in here and dab it in random spots. And what this is going to do is it's going to build up that little bit of depth that we're going to need before we glaze the whole thing entirely. So we're just getting there and creating, see how it creates a little bit of a shimmer over top of that Ulthuan Grey right there, but it also brings it together with the back underneath dark, and then the fades from the airbrush right there, which is we're basically glazing it is what I'm trying to say, but we're creating patchwork glazes to kind of make it look like the energy is popping. And we're going to do that a couple more times, come back and go over it with a few more layers, and then we'll get to the next step. And the very last step after all of that, going back 3 or 4 times, hitting the splotchiness factor, which you can kind of see in a couple of different spots right here. The very last step is to just take the same glaze that we've been using this whole time, and we're just gonna coat the whole sword itself just to give it that one final solid glaze to bring them all together. It is super thin, it's super translucent. You can see it right here. Like, this is kind of what we're working with, what we're working from. And let's see if I can show you so this is what we're working from. This is the glaze itself straight out of the bottle, just to give you an idea, right? So you want to water this down as much as you can without having it go too far. And well, I already did it right there. So there you can kind of There you can kind of see everything once we pop it back in focus. We're gonna let that dry, and it's pretty much donezo at this point. Now, a couple of wrap-up ideas for you. Again, you can do this with successive layers of some sort of turquoise. It's going to take a while. The airbrush is obviously the preferred method here. Make sure you're just dragging your tip across the blade with just the edge catching at these really weird jagged kind of type patterns. You're going to splotch on the glaze. You're going to do one final glaze. Now, when you matte coat this down at the end, which I recommend Tester's lusterless dull coat, or lusterless or dull coat, it's both the same thing, depends on which one you're buying. Then go back at the very end with a little bit of gloss varnish or art coat, whatever brand you're using, and coat the blade at the very end so it has that sheen, or even a satin varnish would be great for this too, and produce the same effect. So that's it for this one. The power sword is now complete. We've done both sides. They link together, and they're going to form a very, very striking, let's pull it down here, a very, very striking contrast to the rest of the model, and make that focal point to bring folks in to look at the rest of the model there. Oh, and once you combine it with the backpack that we painted, yes, we did these on stream. Once you combine these together, you will notice that there's going to be a whole lot of blue in here, a whole lot of blue fades, and it's going to really pull stuff together.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos,